Hi, welcome back. We're going to start another tutorial here and pick up where we left off for digital photography and design. This is video number 4. I misspoke before. Our last video was on layers and transformations. This is going to be more on selections. So this video is about selecting things and moving things around a little bit more. Okay, so this is video number 4. Okay, so here we are picking up from where we left off. I've got a lot of the same files open in Photoshop. Um, and we have our layers over here just like before. The top tool over here is where you move things. Remember that. That's what you do to move something around. You have to be in the layer that you want to move it around. Okay, so if I move that one, it moves this one. We did some edit and transformations. So last video was layers and transformations. Now let's say we want to make some more detailed selections of things, or we would like to make some selections that we can then move around. Okay, so because right now we're moving the whole picture. This is the this is the whale tail picture here, and this is the balloon picture. But the whale tail picture, we selected the whole picture and moved it into here, and here it is turned around, but it still has all of the picture. We didn't select individual pixels. So let's say we want to make some selections of different pixels, because remember, this program is made up of pixels, small little dots, and we want to try and make some selections and move them around. So to start this, I'm just going to jump to the whale picture here real quick and show you how this simply can work by using the simplest selection tool that we have, which is called our marquee tool. So when I move over here to my marquee tool and I move down, I've got multiple kinds of selections I can make. Usually the rectangular marquee is the default tool, but you can select a round one if you'd like. I'm going to just choose the rectangular one. This layer is layer 0. There's only one layer in this picture. And so I'm going to just click and drag. And now this is called a selection. You can tell it's a selection because it has like this running ants looking thing going around it. If I click and select a circle, that's going to select like this. Now, don't be fooled that this is making some random sort of selection. If I make a selection like this and zoom in on it, I can get in real close, really close, and look at really what we're selecting and see that we're really selecting around these pixels, around the edges of them. As I zoom in really, slide over a little bit more here, you can see that it's not a random selection. It's actually going around the edge of every little box and making that selection. When I zoom out using, I use Control plus to zoom in. I'm going to use Control plus to zoom back out. We learned that before. And it looks like a circle. But remember, that's really selecting pixels. Okay, so what can we do with this selection? There's another selection, here's another selection. As I click and drag, it creates different types of selections. What can I do with something like that? Well, I can select a particular area of the picture, let's say here, and I could go back to the Move tool, and I could move it. Okay, so I've moved just a group of pixels now. I'm going to do a Control Z and have that go back to where it was before. I can also copy these pixels and copy them into a new layer. So instead of moving that, let's say I want to do edit, copy, or you can do Control C, go over to my layers menu from last video, make a new layer, and do a Control Z or V, or you can do an edit, paste. Okay, so it doesn't look like much is happening here, but look what I've actually done. I've copied those layers or those pixels onto their own layer. Okay, so that layer, layer 1, that part of the tail, that section of it, has been copied. Those pixels have been copied into their own layer. Okay? I can move those around independent of the other picture. I can work on them as their own. I've copied them from layer 0 into layer 1 by making a very simple selection using the selection tool over here, the marquee selection tool. Okay? Now, let's say we want to make a selection with the marquee tool. If I hold down the Shift key, it will keep a perfect square. And same thing with the circle or the elliptical tool. If I hold down the Shift key, it will select with the perfect circle. So those are just little tricks about that particular tool. Um, this tool also, just like all the other tools, has settings up here that you can change as far as how to work with it. You can feather this as you work with it. You can change the style of it, but for right now, we're just going to do the basics, trying to learn how to make some selections of pixels. So that's the simplest way to make a selection from a pixel. Now let's say I want to be kind of fancy about this in a way, but instead of copying it into the layer from in the whale tail picture, I'll make a selection here of the tail. All right, and go to the layer 0, which is will be my target layer, do an edit copy. Then instead of copying it into this file, I'm going to jump to the balloons file, the one that I had multiple layers already in there. Make a new layer, it's empty, layer 3, and do an edit paste, or Control V. And now I've copied those pixels into this file. So it doesn't matter if I'm copying in this file or in this file. I'm just jumping around from one picture to the next, and the program will remember what I have on my pasteboard. Okay? So I think I'm going to go back to this particular picture and see if I can't just turn some of these other things off and maybe work with some of the balloons a little bit, since there's more in this picture to work with as far as, oh, there we go. So we'll make some selections of some of these other things. But in this file I still have, that's kind of cool, isn't it? That's just an offset version of the picture because we copied it. That would be a technique, something you could try. But there's these other layers are here. I just have them turned off right now. And I'm even going to pull this one up to the top just to work with it right now, so we can make some selections of this particular, these balloons, because they're kind of nice shapes. So as we work our way down the toolbar, all three of these tools that are under the Move tool are all selection tools. We have a lasso tool, which has multiple things in it if I click and drag, and we have a quick selection or magic wand tool. Both of these tools are going to be very helpful for us to make selections of things, because let's say not all of our selections are going to be about selecting boxes and things. So we go down to the next tool here, the lasso tool, and this is going to give us a little bit more flexibility. This is going to let me do something like this and draw a selection. Okay, so if I wanted to select just this particular area, it gives me a little bit more control. Okay, I can still copy this selection and do all the stuff that I did with it before if I wanted to make a selection with that tool. Okay, that's just another option for you to make a selection. By the way, I just did something. I made a selection, and then I didn't want the selection anymore. I wanted to turn it off, and I just went over here or went to a blank area of the picture and just clicked. I didn't drag and click, I just clicked, and that turned it off and got rid of it. Another thing you can do if you got a selection that you don't like is to go up to select and deselect. Okay, so here we go. Other more complicated things. We've got a magnetic lasso tool. Okay, now we're getting a little bit more specific. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and let's say I want to try and go around this balloon. And the magnetic lasso tool is going to try to give you a selection that is along the edge of pixels that it thinks are similar or have a lot of contrast. So it can recognize that the background is blue and lighter, and this balloon is lighter. And now we've got kind of a selection of the balloon. It worked pretty well. It went around. I mean, if we look down here at the very bottom and we were going to if we were going to be really good craftsmen, which we will eventually here, it would, oh, it didn't show up. Where is it? Oh, I accidentally turned off my selection. I could always go to my history menu and redo it. There it is. But down here at the very bottom, I've got a little thing. There's a little thing there. So that's another way of selecting this. I can copy that balloon now and paste it in as many places that I'd like. The polygon selection lasso tool we're going to skip for now and move on to the other choices. I'm going to deselect this by going to select, deselect. Select, deselect. There we go. And move to my layers again here so I'm set and see what I'm looking for. Now the third tool down here, or fourth tool, it's the third selection tool, is something called a magic wand or a quick selection tool. And this tool I find really helpful because it does just what you think it would do. Oh, by the way, something just happened. I did not have a layer selected. I just had it like this. Notice there's no target layer over here. And I selected my tool, and when I came over here, I got this crossbar that says circle with a line through it, a hashtag saying, or a hash mark saying I can't do anything. It won't let you do anything because there's no layer selected. So I have to select my layer and then it will actually work. Okay? So the quick selection tool is a little bit like filling something in. So instead of working from, I'm going to Control Z that, instead of working around an edge, it will try and fill something in and see what's similar. So as I click on this, it sees that that's very similar and it wants to select it. It sees that similar and I can drag and make a selection of that. It sees this is going to, watch, it'll do mostly the black probably, yeah. And then it jumps to that. Okay, you can change the settings of this to subtract from the selection or add to the selection depending on what's going on here and whether you get the right information that you want. You can imagine, like, if you were going around hair or something like that, it may be really hard to make it specific. You can refine the edge and do edge refinements to try and make that give you a better selection. And all of that is going to be per project depending on what you're doing. If the quick selection isn't working, you may need to play around with refining your edge to make it work. But the quick selection tool is a really handy tool. It's actually a tool that grew out of another tool called the magic wand tool. And what the magic wand tool does is the same as the selection tool, except for it's not done by clicking and dragging. You just click and it remembers, or it tries to select pixels that are similar next to it. Okay. Now, one of the things that's kind of cool about this tool is that you can change the tolerances. So if I change the tolerance up at the top here and put it lower at 5, it will select a much smaller area of the blue. If I put it up to the default, which is 32, and try it again, it selects much more. Now remember, that looks like a funky old selection there. It's not what we've done so far, but I can click and drag that, and that's just a pixel selection, just like anything else. So even if it looks really complicated like that, don't get confused and think, oh, what's going on here? Because it's really just a pixel selection, just like a square or a circle. Okay? So those are some ways of making selections that you can experiment with. A lot of students really like the quick selection tool. For instance, let's say we do want to make a selection of this balloon. It works very quickly. I have a selection here. I can even add to it by just clicking on there and adding. And then I go up to my edit, copy, make a new layer, or why don't I just go to layer 1 because it's an empty layer, and edit, paste it in there. And it pastes it right on top of where I selected. It does that all the time, so it doesn't look like it's there. But if I move it, whoop, I gotta move it. Where are you? Oh, it's hidden by this. Okay, so I'm going to pull it up on the top. See, I was just moving layer 4, and I didn't realize that I didn't have it on the top. So I put that up on the top, and there we go. Voila. We've just cut this off of the bottom, which we could easily zoom in and refine a little bit more if we wanted to. Some of the things we worked on before, we can do an edit transform. Let's say scale, and hold down the shift key so that it stays in proportion. And now we're adding balloons to a picture in a fairly seamless way, where we feel like maybe that could be part of this picture. Making it this small, it makes it seem like it's in the back. So in order for this to go behind this other balloon, let's say we wanted this to be here and make this really realistic the way that this one is behind here, I would have to cut this out. Well, let's just do it. I had a selection here. Let's make this balloon look like it's right behind there. I'll do the same selection. It's on the pasteboard already. So I'm just going to go to layer 1. I'm going to do an edit paste, and it's pasting it right back on here as it was before. It's right in the right place, so I'm not even going to move it. I'll move it all the way up to the top. Oh, I guess it did move it a little bit. Put it on there, jump to our layer 4, which is the smaller one. Okay, and now let's sandwich layer 4 between those two layers. And there we go. It's in front of the very background, but it's behind this layer that we just cut out and put on the top. Okay, so those are some selection tools. Those 3 things will give you lots of different ways of selecting. I am going to show you one other, well, no, I think we'll leave it at this for now. Those are some pretty sophisticated, or there's going to be a lot of things to work with for that. So I think we'll leave those selections at that for now. And I think that's it. Thanks for watching, and we'll move on to the next video number 5, I think, soon.